Hey folks, this is the Maineprepper. If you're like me, you've probably got a lot of electronic devices, and all of them, of course, have a rechargeable battery, it seems nowadays, which is great because we don't have to keep feeding these things AA's. If you do need AA batteries, by the way, you can get a 6-volt lantern battery and cut the top off of it carefully, pry it off with your screwdriver, and inside there are 32 or 38 AA batteries, and I'll do that one time, but there's some YouTube videos out there, and maybe I'll put a link there that you can look at. All right, and so being rechargeable, the natural implication is that we will have to sometime or another recharge all of this equipment if we're going to use it. Now obviously you don't need your Walkman and your sear kit, but if you like to go out riding or running in the woods or anything else or camping, you may take this along. I don't walk along with this in the woods. I like to listen to what's going on out there. It's not a tactical thing when I'm out camping. It's more just I like to hear the sounds of nature. Now as we're watching the battery bar drop down on our phone and our Garmin and all of these tools, we go, wow, what am I going to do? Well, we can try to miser our batteries until we get back to civilization, but that may not be an option. So we're going to have to recharge. Right now, our options for recharging are kind of limited, unless we're talking about coming home or finding some electricity, a source of it. We're going to have to produce our own. And so we have solar panels, such as I have on this shortwave AM FM emergency radio, or we have a dynamo. And the dynamo radio has on this, the one that I have two of them, different kinds, and we'll review them later. It has a plug in two places for recharging and for receiving a charge as well. It has its own internal battery here in this compartment, so I can take that out. That's okay, but if you've ever done any charging with one of these dynamo driven radios, you'll know we're talking about a lot of charging time to charge up an iPhone, iPad, certainly this Garmin Newbie. It has quite the battery in the back of it. All right, it's a substantial looking battery. That's not going to charge up with a few cranks. That's going to take quite a bit of juice to get charged up. So what do we do? What options do we have here? Well, we have another option. We can charge up our rechargeable devices with wood. No, the cheese has not slipped off the cracker yet. You can actually do it with wood. I found out about this from Engineer 775. That's the great thing about subscribing to folks out there. And the people that I have listed on the bottom of my channel are great folks to subscribe to because they're always looking at things, always coming up with innovative ideas. They're reading, they're researching. This is their passion. And Engineer 775 got me very interested in gasification with his videos. And I'm going to be doing that up in Maine. Great option because wood is plentiful for me, and wood is plentiful and biomass is out there. You can be in a subdivision and find little sticks. Go up to a bush and go inside and grab all the dead limbs off of the bottom and the inside and snap them off. If they snap off clean, they'll burn. This stove is 4 inches by 8 inches, and it is a wood burning stove, but it burns tiny little sticks, the kind of sticks you wouldn't even consider for firewood in a real cowboy campfire. It comes in a bag, comes with instructions which I as a man will promptly discard, lose, and hate myself for it. No, I'm just kidding. I will especially read these instructions because that's what a good steward does. When you buy something, you read all of the features on it because you may have a gold mine in your hand that does other things for you. They came with some little fire sticks, fire starter sticks that helps you to start it, and the instructions tell you how to use that. We won't cover that today. We'll cover that when we go to the field. We'll set the bag aside for a moment. What we're down to is two main components, a stove body and the battery and charger unit. Let's talk about the stove body first. Overall, nested together, it's about 4 inches by 8 inches, by the way. Fits nice in one of the outside compartments of my rucksack, and there's a few other options to carry it. It's not going to go in my sear kit. It's a little big for that, but it is going to go in definitely in my bug-out bag, my bug-out rucksack, as it were. All right. And another piece that comes with it is this is the charger, and I'll show you the charger in just a minute and why we need the charger before we go to the bush. Okay, the stove body, stainless steel. It's got a honeycomb type vented on the outside so you won't accidentally touch this. It'll still be hot, but not nearly as hot as if you touched this inner wall. This is a double wall stove, meaning not just do we have a shield on the outside, but we have two walls on the inside of the stove. And that means it gets a pretty good airflow and chamber going, but they try to keep as much of the heat inside going upward, and that's going to be important in just a second to know. Back side of the stove is a hole for the thermoelectric probe and a hole, a vent slot for air to go through, which we will show in just a second why. The air essentially does need to flow in, and there are tiny vent holes all around the inside of the inner body. So you have an outer body, we have a shroud or a sleeve, and then inside there is a body underneath here that's solid, and then inside is a body piece that has a chamber that has holes drilled into it. The holes are good. The holes are punched that way, so you're not going to cut your hand should you reach in here to clean your stove out. Don't recommend you do it while it's hot, though. And believe me, I'll probably be the guy that does it, that reaches in there. Bottom has 3 legs that fold up. Now these are just riveted on, so don't go King Kong on them. Don't try to put a 400-pound pot on this stove either, because the legs will break off. When you fold the legs out, you just want to fold them neatly. If you ever have something like this that's got, it's made out of metal, if you ever have something like this, and these legs I believe are aluminum, they feel it anyway, be real careful not to over torque it. You can still fix it if you had a way to rivet these back on, but I wouldn't recommend we go there. Okay, and then there's a screw on the bottom where we can take the inner chamber body out if we needed to clean it, or we got things down inside of here we wanted to get rid of. Stands up very nicely, and on top here you would put a pot, pan, or something else. This works pretty good with my canteen cup, for instance. The actual thermoelectric unit is brilliant. First of all, it has most noticeably a copper probe on the back, and this is a piece of solid copper that I believe, and I'm not taking this apart to find out because it doesn't have it doesn't have the look about it that says take this apart, Maineprepper. The screws, even though there's 2 you can see here, there are more screws down here that are very deep. And when screws are real deep down in there, that's an indicator that maybe you shouldn't be monkeying around inside of there. All right, and inside you can see a squirrel cage fan right here. That's going to be talked about in a second. Here we have a sort of an insulator that's keeping, this is where the thermoelectric coupler is, and then your battery is down in here, and there's a lithium-ion battery inside of this. On the back side is a rubberized cover for our USB port, and this is the business end where we do all of our hookup for our charging. Okay, it's a USB, standard USB. You don't have to buy a specialized one. I never buy any tools from any company, by the way. I have a very almost angry approach to that. I went to buy a tractor one time, and they had implements that went with it. They said a full array of them, and they only fit their tractor, and you had to buy their implements, and they were just as expensive. This was a small garden tractor. Those implements were just as expensive as a full-size tractor, and I said no, I wouldn't buy the tractor either, even if I got a good price, because wow, I'm going to be stuck with something, A, and B, what else? This is a very sneaky, underhanded marketing technique when someone does that. I digress a little, but I'm just telling you, if you find somebody that their stuff is not compatible with anybody else's, they have their own kind of ammunition or own magazines that don't work with any other magazines but their weapon, you want to stay away from them, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to skim you marketing-wise. Once you're bought their product, you're trapped and you have to buy only from them and their stuff. And you don't want to do that. You want to have options. So I just say, let's let those people go out of business and learn a valuable lesson about getting our business and about how you have to earn it, not trick us into giving it to you. Okay, I digress enough. Here on the back we see a switch. And of course, being me, I have to push the button. Immediately, I hear a whirring noise. And I think you can too. And a light comes on and that says low. There's a low and a high. This is the speed of the fan inside. A fan? Yes, a fan. That's exactly what I thought when I pushed the button. Yes, there's a fan. All right, now this fan does two things. Number one, it helps keep the battery unit cool, and it keeps the thermoelectric generator from getting too hot. And there is a certain amount of cooling that has to occur, from what I understand, on the back side of this to create the thermoelectric effect. I still don't understand all the technology right now. I do know that it works. That's what's important for the moment. I'll figure it out on the scientific level later. For now, I'll just say it works by magic. But I do know that this fan has to be running. Therefore, you must buy this USB charger, charge your unit up before you go to the bush or the field. And I will show you that in just a second. You don't have to have this running when you put this on the stove. In fact, you're probably not going to. And to turn this off, you hold the button down for a couple of seconds, okay? And there it's off. There's a probe hole on the back, and this will mount. There's a little piece of orange plastic here on the bottom of the stove. This will mount inside like so. And this, at the bottom, there's a little leg that mounts there, and that will keep the stove mounted at exactly the right angle and the right distance. Once that's in place, sorry, I had to put that against my chest. I fold the leg out gently, and there I have, ready to go. As the stove heats up, it creates interesting thing about a fire is hotter up above the flame than it is on top of it. So you don't have to have this covered with wood in order to get it to heat. However, you're going to be cooking, and so you'll want to have some kind of a fire in here, and you want your sticks to be kind of loosely packed. The great thing about these little stoves is they'll burn little pieces of stick, and all of the heat is captured. That's the beauty of wood gasification, is it's extremely efficient way of capturing all of the heat. Very little should we let just go up into the air. Now, it's going to go up in the air anyway, but we should try to capture as much of the heat as possible. So by being able to use this as a stove and as a thermoelectric generator, we're being extremely efficient. If you go camping in national forests or anything else, you've probably seen a restriction against open fires, and they want you to use a wood stove. However, in many cases, this will qualify. Ask your park ranger if you can use a camp stove that has a closed bottom on it. And it's like a pot. There's no embers that are going to fall out of the bottom of this onto the ground. None, unless you dump it. That's the only way you're going to have that situation occur. So this can help you get around that legally. If you have a question, again, ask the park ranger when you get there. One that's knowledgeable. Don't ask the person necessarily at the front gate. They may be new, and whenever somebody's new, their first response will usually be no, because they don't want to get in trouble, but they may say it with some authority and drive you off. It produces 5 volts, which is exactly what all of your USB stuff does. Now, when it's got a low fire on it, it'll produce about 2 volts or so. But once you get a good fire going, and once this copper rod gets hot and stays hot, it'll begin producing at a very steady pace. We'll show this being charged in charge mode out in the field. But for now, we're going to have a look at this when it's hooked up to a USB charger. The field with a good charge on it, because this fan has to be running when we start our fire. It has to be running because if it doesn't, the heat of the fire is going to melt the plastic. It'll get started pretty quick, and you do run the fan while the fire is going and while you have this attached to the stove. You do not want to have it sitting on the side of the stove, and it'll come on. It has a thermostat. It'll kick on anyway. Don't try to override that feature If you do, you'll ruin your unit because it is a hard plastic. This is not a cheap plastic on here. This is very durable, but it will still melt. All right, it comes with a male-to-male USB port charger cable, and you plug it into your USB female charging port, and then on the stove you remove the rubber shipping plug that's firmly and tethered by a single piece of rubber, and plug this in, and here's what you will see. Let me turn this off so we can see. Look, the light came on. Oh no, the light went off. Ooh, the light went on. So I'm watching this and wondering, now what? I looked it up, and this means it's charging. This is their indicator that it's charging, which is pretty cool because it's not burning a lot of electricity. I don't know how long the LED will last on there, but it is nice. It takes a few hours to charge it from flat up to rechargeable. It is lithium ion, so you want to keep in mind that these lithium ions, they tend to wear out over a period of time. However, they advertise that this is good for thousands of hours. Biolite makes two products. This one's available for commercial sale, and there's a bigger unit, and go look at their website. There's a bigger unit that's a home stove. You can't get the home stove unless you are getting it via a national, non-governmental organization like the UN or UNICEF or something else, who are buying these and distributing them to third worlders. And this is great because even third worlders, and it's a much bigger stove, need something that's going to be fuel efficient as well as create the electricity. Fuel efficient is important because an issue that I had to deal with in Afghanistan was deforestation, and I had to deal with that in Iraq too. Deforestation occurs when people need fuel to heat and, more importantly, to cook, and they go through and they cut down all the trees, and then when the trees are gone, all of the regrowth that's occurring, they cut that down too because they're so desperate for food. And then what happens is when it rains, the topsoils wash away and you have immense and massive flooding. And that's the problem with any deforestation going on, whether it's for people to have wood to burn and cook their food, or whether it's being done in the interest of timber. Usually a timber company, if they own the land, they will reforest, they will replant. They do not want to lose their return on their investment. Where we as concerned citizens should get involved is when our state and national parks, especially state parks, are selling off that's our as in taxpayers, property to timber companies at rock bottom prices, and then not requiring them to reforest either. I'm not against logging. I'm not against capitalism. I am not against people making a profit. I am, however, against the taxpayers subsidizing someone in these endeavors. If it's a good enough business that it'll make money, you don't need to bribe a politician to take my money to make your profits. Okay, but I digress. When this orange flashing light stops flashing and it goes to a solid orange, you're ready to go. You're going to want to charge this up and keep it charged, because if it's in your bug out bag, you're going to want it to run when you get where you're going. Now, it doesn't have to have a full charge to run. With a little small charge on it, you can. But you certainly don't want it to be flat dead. If it's flat dead, when you go to put this on your stove, there's a chance you may melt this very hard and durable plastic, and more importantly, ruin the thermocoupler unit by not having some sort of cooling on it. So try not to let this get dead, just like all the batteries in your equipment. Now that you have a charger, it's better if you charge it back here in the world. That being said, I know practically we're not going to go into our bug out bag or our camping gear all the time. And when you're bugging out, you don't have time to sit here and wait several hours to recharge this, I presume. Hence, bug out. Alright folks, this has been the Maineprepper. I like the stove. I paid $129 for the stove from Biolite, only place I could find it, and another $13 for tax, I think, and the rest was shipping and handling. It got here within a couple of weeks, and in great packaging, great condition, came with all the bells and whistles I showed you earlier. We'll have a look at this stove when we get out into the woods and we actually use it for cooking, and also I'm going to take something out there like my Garmin and I'll run it down to flat nothing, and we'll see how well it charges and how much time it takes. This has been the Maineprepper. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll be getting to that Marine Corps ILBE as soon as I can. Okay, bye.